Welcome to another episode of Junior Achievement of South Florida's Recipe for Success. Just as there are no two recipes that contain the exact same ingredients or measurements, there are no two success stories exactly the same. Recipe for Success features entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and innovators of all ages who will share the ingredients that make them successful. Here's your host, Lori Salarulo, President and CEO of Junior Achievement of South Florida.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of JA's Recipe for Success. I'm Lori Salarulo, your host, and I'm the President and CEO with Junior Achievement of South Florida. Today, one of our guests today is, in my opinion, someone that I truly admire and have watched go through so many different situations and crises as the superintendent of a very, very large school district. And his leadership, in my opinion, has been exemplary. And I am proud to work so closely with our superintendent, Runcie, who I will bring in now. How are you?
Fine, Lori. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you. I have to tell you, first of all, I want to thank you because I love our partnership. I admire the school district, you, the board members, for choosing to advocate and to say that this education, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, career readiness is so important that we are one of the few districts in the country that mandates those curriculums for 5th and 8th graders here in Broward County. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the partnership. And I mean, for the thousands of kids that go through JA World each year to be able to get those kind of experiential learning opportunities, it really is a life changer for many of them, and it really helps them to really have hope and continue to think about possibilities that they've never really thought about. And then, of course, there are the partnerships that you have with our specific schools, like Lauderhill 6 through 12, and how you're really creating a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities there for that school, which, by the way, has a 100% graduation rate, and they're constantly proud of that. And I think your involvement in JA World is part of the secret ingredient at that school. So thank you so much for everything JA World continues to do and helping kids. Yeah.
It is our pleasure, our pleasure. And I know we've worked very closely with your teams over these last few weeks, making sure that all of our programs were available on Canvas and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about, I think people take for granted, right? The Broward County public school system is a huge ship, I always say, right? And so turning a big ship can often take a lot and can take a while. Can you talk a little bit about that shift from classroom learning and then all of a sudden having to shift directly into virtual, online, remote learning? What did that take?
It certainly was a heavy lift, right? But as I tell people, it's, hey, Broward schools, fortunately, unlike many other districts, we were already working out in the weight room. And by that, I mean that we had already infrastructure. We had processes and tools that were in place to support a blended learning environment. So prior to the closure of our school campuses, our district for several years, going back, I think about 4 or 5 years earlier, had invested in a blended learning environment where we had single sign-on, which is one way that our teachers and students, they get authenticated with their credentials, they get placed into a virtual environment, then they're actually put into a virtual classroom, they see assignments there, they turn in their work, they engage with a teacher and other students, and they also have access to a plethora of digital resources. That structure was already there and being utilized by the majority of our teachers and students. So we just effectively had to go scale that up. We didn't have to run out and cut deals with vendors, try to find tools and resources to make it happen. So that was one headache and thing that we actually didn't have to worry about. And that work was already done and all of that sweat equity put in place. Then what we did was we made sure that we addressed the digital divide, right? So we distributed to date over 90,000, almost 100,000 laptop computers any student who needed one. We made sure they have it. Then we negotiated discounted internet services from Comcast and AT&T, around $5 to $10 per month. And then third, we also secured thousands of free mobile hotspots, which we are giving those devices to students with housing instability, like our homeless students, as well as students who have serious financial challenges. So we made sure that everybody was connected, and it's been good. We track daily attendance into our systems, and it's around 91, 92% on a daily basis. And so far, we know that 98% of our kids have engaged on the platform. Some obviously not doing it as regularly, but on a daily basis, about a little over 90% of our kids are regularly engaging. And so that's been a good thing for us. I know districts around the country who literally had given up on the distance learning. They've shut down. They're not giving out grades. They've basically written off the fourth quarter. We were able to do what we say, which is, although our campuses are closed, our education and learning never closes. So
exactly. It's interesting. I think that, that's so important that you had the infrastructure, you had something to build upon. You gave the students the tools that they needed. I think what's even harder than those things is the mindset, right? Shifting the mindset of teachers, parents, students, administrators, right? And the community at large, that you can still provide this value, educational value, without them being in the building. And so talk a little bit about, as a leader, what that meant for you and how you went about trying to change and shift the mindset.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote by Albert Einstein, who once said something to the effect that the way to solve the problems that we have today can't be solved with the same level of thinking as when they were created. So this is absolutely new. I think we should, as I say, never waste a crisis. So yes, it is a crisis, but it is a time of enormous opportunity to really think outside the box and look at all the things that need to improve, may not have been working for all kids in public education, and can we somehow transform this system to really meet the needs of all of our kids, right? And so being able to have a more flexible system that can create greater degrees of personalization and customization for each student is going to be a plus, right? And so we know going forward that e-learning, distance learning should really be a continued option in the district for our kids. We know there are students that, they work now. They've now, because their families are in very difficult situations, they might be working at the supermarket, but they're the primary income earner in the family. They may not be able to get on and engage in a normal school day schedule, but being able to offer some type of more flexible program where they could do something in the evenings or whatever hours make sense is something that we need to do. We also can certainly make sure that kids have opportunities to catch up and recover. We can, from their work, especially when they're falling behind, we can do that more efficiently. Some students are able to learn more effectively online, so we need to create more of those options. They're actually liking what they've experienced. We have students and staff who sometimes have certain health conditions and situations that preclude them from having consistent attendance on a school campus. But that doesn't mean that they can't consistently every day be connected. So there are lots of things that we're working through, and I think it's going to be an exciting time going forward to see how our public education system evolves, given the challenges we have, because this won't be the last crisis. It won't be the last pandemic. We deal with hurricanes. We deal with all kinds of challenges. And so given what we know now and our experiences that we have, we really should be able to continue the learning process, even when we have to close our campuses for whatever reason that may be. And, part of the challenge was really moving a large number of our teachers to join the others that have been doing online learning to some extent. And, we continue to still work through that. We have the vast majority of our teachers, I'd say, are very comfortable. They're engaging with their students. They are innovative. They're just like spectacular. But we know there's some that need a little more help. They need more support and training. We absolutely committed ourselves to doing that, and we put together a revised plan to step up the support, training, and mentoring for those teachers. Because at the end of the day, when we come back in the fall, every teacher's got to be comfortable and confident doing some portion of their instruction online. Now, not everything that you do needs to be, visual, video chatting, video conferencing, but that still has to be some part of it. The kids need that, especially our younger kids, our kids with special needs, and our kids that have, academic challenges. For them to engage and visually see an adult, that is a big plus for their emotional development and well-being.
Yeah, I have to tell you, we've been, we've been continuing to do our JA Career Bound program and the JA Fellows Entrepreneurship program with the high schools that we work with in about 30 of your high schools. And we've continued that. And I will tell you that I was pleasantly surprised by the engagement of the students when we did a virtual speaker series, for instance. And what was interesting was they would all ask questions in the chat, right? So when you have them in person, they're not always willing to ask the questions in front of their whole group. But with the chat, they were able to send in questions, and then we were able to call, kind of call their name and have that conversation. So I have to tell you, I was really, really pleased by the turnout. We would have, like you said, about 90% of the students were showing up. It's funny, our board attendance has gone up with virtual board meetings. So it takes away any of those transportation challenges or other challenges of time that we might have. I think you said something really, really key that is so important during times like this. And I know John F. Kennedy also had a quote about Chinese brushstrokes. And one brushstroke meant that we should be facing the challenges. And the other brushstroke said, but don't forget to see the opportunities, right? And so I think that's one of the things I admire is that we have had crisis, right, in the district or in our community, but that as a leader, you are facing them and growing. This is when the most innovation happens, right? And I think we're always so surprised by our teams and how they really step up, right, and show up. And that's been amazing to watch as a leader.
Yeah, and it's also been amazing to see how even our young people have stepped up and basically said, hey, the show must go on. And so, last week, for example, we, I was participated as a judge for one of our debate tournaments. So they've been going on, and we've had situations where as many as 500 students have been connected online, and they're coaching, teaching, and supporting each other. It's really been fascinating to see.
Yeah, I agree. It goes to it speaks to the resiliency, right, of all of us as a community, especially even our young people. I think you talked about having the infrastructure in place, having the plan. I say my PPP today stands for plan, prioritize, and pivot. Because just when we think we have the plan in place, right, all of a sudden the rules change or something new happens and plan changes and we need to pivot. Talk a little bit about that flexibility. You have a board of what, how many? 9, I think, right? nine
Yeah,
leaders
that's correct.
that
Yep.
you report to, and sometimes getting that consensus, and when you have to shift and move so quickly can be difficult. What has that been like, going through that, working together with the board, and like I said, pivoting with new plans constantly being developed?
Yeah, well, as an organization, we've been gotten pretty good now at managing our way through crises and challenges. We've constantly for years would get changes from the state in terms of the mandated assessments and the standards. And that changes every time there's a new administration. The state's going through that again. So we're constantly, adjusting to that. We adjust to, different financial challenges that we run across. We adjust to hurricanes. We had our, the school tragedy.
You went on mute. You're on mute.
Did you hear?
There you go.
Did it just all of a sudden go on mute? Was I
Yeah.
before? Where did it go on mute at?
You were just saying about how the district had gone through the tragedy as well.
Yeah, and so we've been through that, and so now we're dealing with a global pandemic. So we know that, look, dealing with these challenges, number one, you have to really be you got to be transparent. You have to be truthful with folks, even when they may not like the answers, but they want to have the confidence that they're hearing all the facts and the evidence. You need to obviously communicate regularly, often, frequently, and I think you need to understand the situation and how it's impacting people, so you can have the right level of compassion and empathy by being able to put yourself in other folks' situation and shoes to the extent that you can. There's got to be an understanding of that. And so, we as an organization have developed some level of leadership and governance resilience to be able to work through these things. And so,
Yeah, such important ingredients, as we say on the show, to the success of the organization, as well as to your success as a leader, right? Transparency, authenticity, communication, empathy, all.
Yeah, and so what we do is, we try to, regardless of where you're in, you stay focused on your strategic priorities. You don't keep shifting them, although circumstances do change and the context changes. They were solid enough that we stay anchored in those. So number one is having high quality instruction, right? So when this shutdown occurred, we wanted to make sure that we would continue teaching and learning. We're continuing to work with our teachers to help them develop their skills to improve the online learning instruction. That's still a big number one priority for us. Ensuring that we have a safe and supportive environment. We continue to make our investments on school safety and security, but also the mental health aspect of what we do. All of our social workers, family counselors, therapists, they're all engaged. They're delivering services online. Tens of thousands of referrals have been addressed. So they're out there making sure that they're doing that. And then our third strategic priority has been in place for several years now, is effective communications, right? So again, communication constantly. And so using our websites, I even now do a weekly video show. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but just weekly updates to the entire community, just engaging with all types of media. Anytime we get new information, we put it out there. We just recently did a survey to hear from all of our parents, our students, and our staff. We got 65,000 responses within days after getting that, and just have an opportunity to look at it. I immediately held a press conference, share that information with the public, because I think everyone needs to get a real sense of, where we are as a collective. And I think there's some good data points out there, but the communication aspect of it. So high quality instruction, having a safe and supportive environment, and effective communications. Those have always been our three strategic pillars, and they're probably as relevant, and some would say maybe even more relevant in this moment than they've ever been.
Yeah, I think that is so important to stay focused on your three, or whatever number an organization has of strategic focuses. And it's interesting when this all came about, a couple of people on my team said, oh, maybe we should do food distributions and that kind of thing. And there was a part of me that said, okay, yeah, that is a need, but it's not our core mission. And so we started to think about how we could stay true to our three pillars, which are entrepreneurship, career readiness, and financial literacy, and delivering quality programs around that education. And so what we came up with was a campaign called Books, Bucks, and Backpacks. And so our first go round will be about 5,000 students, because we're still doing all the fifth graders and eighth graders through the, digitally with you all. But we wanted to get to more families and get this information around financial literacy, which we know is more critical today, right, that knowledge, than ever before. And we wanted to get that into the home. So we launched this campaign to get backpacks with financial literacy activities and materials into the homes of at least 5,000 students who might not be getting it right through fifth and eighth grade. And so staying true to that core, I think, is so important. I think, and by the way, congratulations, Stoneman Douglas was just named one of the 2 teams that will go to the national competition for the JA Fellows Entrepreneurial Finale, which is usually in Washington in June, but it'll be virtual, I think, this year. So congratulations on that. I know you and I will continue to work on ways that we can continue to bring this education to more and more students. You know that we are here to support you in that way, in any way. And let's work to get this for every high school student, because they're the ones who in the next, 4 to 6 years will fill our pipeline, right? Our workforce pipeline, or be, eventually going into college, and they're going to need these skills to be on their own. So important. So you mentioned so many amazing ingredients already, but I always ask everyone, what is your main ingredient to success? Yours personally, what is the main ingredient that has gotten you through times like these as a leader and just made you feel really good as a leader?
I think the part is really trying to, develop people. I think, effective leaders will build good teams and give them the support and the ability to do well, give them some room so that they're able to make critical decisions. I mean, ultimately, you can have an organization that performs really well, but if the person at the top is essentially doing everything and making almost every decision, then when you leave, the organization is going to be hamstrung. So, I mean, I think part of the legacy work that we all do is building organizations for not just the present moment, but for the future. So having a good team of people is absolutely essential, because no one does anything by themselves. So that's always been, I think, probably the most important part of my job, is to make sure you get, as they say, the right people in the right seats on a bus. Sometimes it doesn't happen when you make adjustments, but that's really been the work. I think the other part of it is, just recognizing as a leader of an organization that your job is to make sure that people are doing the right thing. And then the job of the rest of the organization is to do things right. So, you're figuring out, hey, what is that is the right thing for us to do in pretty much every situation. But then everyone else has got to make sure we're doing it right? Doing it according to policies, procedures, guidelines, everything else that we have. And that's the thing. And then I think the thing also is asking questions and asking probing and thoughtful questions, not necessarily to build up your knowledge base, because that'll come from doing that. But, asking these questions are really to make sure that people know what they're doing. It's not so that I know, I want to make sure that you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, and that it makes sense, and that you've really thought about it in the ways that you should have. So, those are, some of the key things I think about. I've always been someone that is not, not satisfied with the status quo. I actually like change. I believe that to be successful, you need to constantly critique where you are. You need to challenge assumptions and try to build something better than where you are. And again, I think this opportunity and moment that we're in allows us to think about something better than our old normal. That's got to be part of your thinking. So I'm not a maintenance person. I'm someone who is always looking to see how we can get better as quickly as we can.
I think that's why I have admired you from day one. I think that is a common bond that you and I have. And you know that about me. I'm never, ever satisfied with this when I think we can do this, right?
Yeah, right.
There is a tenacity about that. And I love that in you. And I think one of the other things that you didn't mention, but I want to mention for you and for those watching, is you are probably one of the most open leaders that I've worked with in this community to partnerships. You realize that not only is it about the people that work within the district, but that it is about the partners in our community. Yeah. And like you said, we can't do it all right ourselves. Right. Your expertise and your main focus, right, is that providing that academic piece, that strong academics, of course, with safety and security and communication and all those things. But the core focus of our schools, right, is to teach our students the academic piece. Well, mental health, or what we do, or what Boys and Girls Club does for after school, or any of those other partners, bring the other pieces so that holistically we are caring for the whole child and the whole family. And I love that about you, that you recognize the value and the importance of partnerships within the community as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. We the reality is that our children are only in our schools for about 1/3 of their time in any day. So what's going on with the other 2/3? They're at home, they're in a community. So if we care about and love our kids, we've got to care about the other 2/3 of the time that they're out there. So it just makes sense for us to partner with as many organizations and folks out there who share the same focus on our kids and their success. And so it's absolutely something that we must continue to do.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I just want to say thank you for being with me today. I love doing this show because I get to learn so much about people and get to have great conversations with leaders like you. And I'm fortunate, I feel very fortunate that I get to work with you on an ongoing basis, and we get to chat and share conversations like this all the time. So I feel blessed to have you in my life.
Yeah. Same here. We wouldn't be the same without your work, your energy, the leadership that you provide to Junior Achievement World. So thank you, and feelings mutual.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being with me today. And to all those watching, thanks for joining us. And please keep an eye on Superintendent Runcie and what's happening at the district. Our students are in good care. I have every confidence that they are doing what's best for our children, and they will continue to grow. So thanks, everyone. And thank you again, Superintendent Runcie, for being with us.
Thank you.